Okay, welcome. So this is a introduction to my application that I created for CSE 335 in the fall 2018 semester. So the app that I created is called Beer Me. It helps you find bars near you. So the reason for this project idea was because a while back when I first turned 21, um, I actually found that when you're looking to go out or go to a bar, you can't specifically really find one with a good deal. So that's where this basically stemmed from. But unfortunately, due to time constraints, I couldn't add as many features as I wanted to. But I was able to implement like the core functionality of how it would work. I'm just kind of missing one part of it, which would be, you know, a review section as well as a display of all the deals. But again, unfortunately, due to the time constraints, I was not able to add those features. So I'm just going to jump right into it, and we'll start looking at the class diagrams and how I structured this. So first, there is the view controller. The view controller holds a city model, a frame. The frame is used for specifically the map that I used. I used Google Maps API rather than the built-in Apple Maps. And this was because I thought it was a much cleaner look than Apple Maps, and I am not really a fan of Apple Maps to begin with. So I used that frame for the Apple Maps specifically. The profile picture, that's again, that's something that I use within Firebase. It grabs the profile picture from Firebase and then brings it into that image. Location manager, current location, those are all things that are used when you're grabbing someone's current location within Swift. And then the map view is just a map view is what is used within Google Maps API to grab that view, and then I put that map view in that frame. And then the zoom level is a float, which is it gives you how high up you're looking in the map, and that's specifically used for Google Maps API again. And then a bar table, so this is just a table view, and you'll see in my demo later how I'm using this, but this is just a table view of all the bars. So basically just looking at this screen, you can kind of already tell how it's laying out. We have a map view, and then we have a table view right below it. But before you can even reach that, I actually have a sign-in view controller, as you can see right here. And the sign-in, if you don't already have an account, then you will be redirected to the sign-up page, where you can create a profile based off of an image. That's your profile picture, your name, email, password, and then I also have the image picker that's just specifically used within Swift. So I also have these a few functions called register, image button, open camera, open gallery, and back button. So the back button basically will take you back to a main view of the sign-in page, and then the open gallery will open up the gallery for your picking of the image, or you can open up your camera, and then there's also the image button, which will display those two calls to those functions. Once you sign up and then sign in, this is all done through Firebase. Once you sign up, sign in, then you'll be redirected to the view controller, which will display the bars near you and things such as that. I'll go into the profile view, which can be accessed through the view controller. This will it's just a very simple way of seeing a profile picture, name, and a logout button. I also created a city model. The city model really is just saying like, okay, in this city, how many bars do you have? And you'll fetch, how many records, and then you can add in 3 different strings, which I use specifically from the API call. That's not really necessary to know that information, but it's just good to know that it's there. So the MVC, how I modeled this entire thing was through a controller, model, and view. Again, MVC for short. So the model I use basically just for I basically use Firebase. So this will grab pizza places, pizza slices, pizza posts, users information, stuff like that. I use the word pizzas because in Yelp's API, the terminology is kind of loose. It's kind of like a restaurant, pizza place, bar. Um, it'll also notify the controller of data changes in real time, provide persistence, saving information, saving the user's reviews and such as things as that. And then the controller really handles all of the authentication through Firebase, all the Yelp API call, all the fetches, whereas the view just kind of is displaying of everything that was previously explained over here. So the view is kind of where they look over at the city model where this is populated, and then the view is where it'll be displayed all of that information when it's populated. So the capabilities of this application is, there's a sign-up feature, a login, authentication, again, all through Firebase, profile picture upload, search for bars near you, display the rating in a user-friendly way. I did like little beers. And then there's auto login feature, which is used through Firebase. Not too important, but just to know it's there, it's there. And then there's also a logout feature because of that auto login feature that is enabled through Firebase. It gets kind of confusing when you're stuck in there and there's no way out, so you kind of have to add a logout feature. I'll talk about the limitations really quickly. So there's a slow startup after logging in, and this has to do with slow API calls, a slow profile picture call from Firebase, and then also the limitation from Yelp itself. So the API call affects the startup a lot. This is because, one, you're limited because I'm a free user on Yelp API, and two, because of the amount of restaurants that I'm pulling in at once, or bars rather. So the profile picture from Firebase, again, I'm a free user, so they don't really have they limit you on your usage and stuff like that. So the more profile pictures that are in there, the slower it will be. And actually, I believe it can only hold up to, I don't know, I want to say, a handful of pictures before I get, cut off at my cap. So this heavily affects the startup as well as the profile. And then with Yelp API, I'm only about 5,000 times a day using that API key. So if I had a large user base, this would be a very big issue. And there's also only up to 50 bars at once it can look up, which again is not a great number, but for the scope of this project, it works. So some of my lessons learned was research before implementation. So I tried to implement a GraphQL API rather than just like a regular API, and this was just due to self-interest, and it didn't work out because of some issues that it had within Swift and Apollo. Again, not important on specifics, but there was an issue there, and if I had read into it before I tried to implement it, then I would have learned, okay, there are some errors in there. There's not a lot of documentation for one, and it probably would have just been a lot of headache for me if I read and actually put a lot of thought into it, but I didn't. Yelp API limitations, I didn't understand them at first, and I only learned them until after I was hitting the API and making those calls. The slow profile picture load, wasn't expecting that. Should have read, researched, did my research. Mockups are extremely important. Those really help while you're developing because you kind of have nothing to base off of, but if you have a mockup, you do. And then collaboration can never hurt because I ran into a few issues and I was able to talk to a friend who was able to explain to me what was going on and how I could go about potentially fixing it. Some improvements for the class or project, I'd say keep the class up to date as possible. Always have, whenever Swift releases anything new, definitely be on top of that documentation and stuff like that. It's super important. Continuing to have coding samples in class I think is really great. I really enjoyed that. And then the project, I would say you can be improved by writing out the idea first, researching how you'll do it and defining if needed, or redefine if needed, and then make mockups and then code and then do all the class diagrams and MVC stuff. because I don't think that it's necessary to do the class diagrams first and then in MVC and then develop, because it just kind of gets confusing. Now I'll go on to a simulation of my application so you can see what it looks like when you're signed in. So as you can see, the profile picture's right here. You have a listed display of bars, and then you'll have like a little map feature right here where you can zoom around and view all of the bars that are listed here. So we'll click on the profile again. You can see that there's a slow load right there because of the limitations within Firebase. So this is a very, very simple app. It doesn't reinvent the wheel, but it does do what it needs to do. So you can see all the review counts. This is all populated from Yelp's API. And then this is Google Maps API right here, which I used in that frame, which I talked about in the class diagram. So we're going to go ahead and log out just so I can show you the feature of signing up and signing in. So signing in, I created a test email. So it would be test@test.com, and then the password is 123test. So this is what the sign-in would look like. It took a second. As you saw in it, the profile picture took a while to load, as well as this. That should be improved due to limitations within the database. And then there's also a sign-up feature as well, where you can enter your name, email, password, and re-enter the password. And if the email already exists, it actually will spit back to you, hey, the email already exists. So here again, you can see, this open gallery portion, which I had explained in the class diagram. And here you can enter a name, email at email.com, just something quickly, 123test, 123test, and then register, and then boom, it loads in with the account, and then it will load in with the profile picture, but again, like I was saying, it takes a minute because of the limitations. But as you can see, the user's first name, what I put in, which was just some dummy data, was there. Again, it takes quite some time to load in, especially as a first-time user, because of this Firebase issue limitations that I'm having. That's all for my application itself. Oh, see, there you go. Image finally loaded in. But that's all for my application itself. Thank you very much.